You've had Wendy's Nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. I dare you. But remember, you can get spicy versions of the other three I mentioned. The spicy honey barbecue, I think that's the one I'm going for today. 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. We are, of course, presented by the fine people at Wendy's. How are we doing, Ari? Ari's muted. Ari doesn't even want to talk to you today.
I got into a coughing fit right as you started. I hit mute so nobody would hear it. And here,
I appreciate that.
We're off to a raising fast start. I miss you. Wish you were still in my house, but I have this new office chair because the last one was wildly uncomfortable. And I got to tell you, I feel like a new man. Like I could do this pod for 5 hours if you want. Like I'm comfortable. Feels like a lazy boy.
Well, we actually have a lot of things to talk about today. And so we might have to do it for 5 hours. But I do, before we get into Mike Gundy being headbutted by a cow, Cam Rising being out for the season, and Kyle Whittingham's very non-committal answer about whether they'd have him back next year. We do have to tell the story of your office chair. So much consternation about what to do, because you were going to order an office chair, and when you order an office chair, it gets delivered to your house, and the base is separate from the seat part, and the seat part is separate from the back part. So you do have to put a couple things together, and you had so much stress about this. So you just went and bought a floor model.
Well, it's funny because I actually brought Dan Rubenstein from the Solid Verbal in on this too. Like I was talking to him on the phone about it, and I had like legitimate, just like I needed a new chair. The other one, like the base was broken so that you would like go like forward. And I felt like I was, if you like noticed on the show, like I kept like hopping back up because like the chair was sliding.
Well, can I ask a question about this chair? Does it adjust?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that your face is covered by the entire lower third because you're too low in your chair?
Oh, no. Watch this.
Okay. Oh, look at that. We got the lettuce in the exact perfect spot now.
The reason why I waited 3 weeks to buy the chairs because the thought process of putting the chair together was so overwhelming for me. I was like, I'd rather be uncomfortable than try to figure this thing out. So eventually it got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. So I went to Staples, and I didn't pick Office Max. I picked Staples for obvious reasons.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. And, I feel like
the zero money that goes to me because that company is named after office supplies and not
natural sponsorship opportunities exist in that realm. I'm just saying. And then the thing that I didn't want to do, because I made the mistake the last time, was I bought the office chair online, and not every office chair is comfortable. So I messed up on that. So I went to Staples, and I sat in every chair, and I was like, okay, that one's comfortable. I can sit in that one during podcasting and writing all day. Let's get this one. They're like, sorry, sir. We don't have any in the box. This is the floor model, but you can take this one and take 20% off. So they took 20% off to help me avoid the thing that I didn't want to do. And I feel like a winner. So like, you did win. You saved yourself an entire 5 minutes putting that chair together. I love that you worried for 3 weeks about the 5 minutes it would take to put the chair together. Well, I just want to let everybody know too that like if you're like me and you're not like Andy who has a toolbox and wants to like assemble things, there's a way out for you. Andy's like, we need to get you into a class that helps you avoid anxiety as it pertains to small manual labor projects around your home. And I'll tell you, I'm pushing 40 now, guys, 36 years old. And I'm finding a way to walk through the rain without getting hit by the raindrops. You know what I mean? Like a few extra shekels here to, somebody does this. You go to Staples and they got the floor model out. Like there's a way to survive in this world. And I got to say, it's a pretty handsome chair, and it's very comfortable, and I'm ready to ride. So I know that, 4 minutes into the show, people don't want to hear about my office chair, but we have a very packed show today.
No, you hit the easy button. Staples.
I did.
For all your office supply. Come on, Staples. Let's go. We need you. But
So
Compartment 21 says in the chat, because our headline says Dan Lanning is a mastermind. And I should have mentioned that right off the bat. We were going to talk about why Dan Lanning is a mastermind, about him pulling a Buddy Ryan against Ohio State. We're going to talk about that later in the show. Compartment 21 says, you two just lost me with the clickbait. Lanning is a mastermind. No. Well, we didn't lose you because you're here. You're actually engaged and involved in the chat. So you're not lost. You're watching, so you're welcome. Welcome to the show. You learn things about buying floor models when you have anxiety about putting them together. And we have lots to talk about because while we're on the subject of former Pac-12 teams, we were going to, we got Oregon coming up, but Utah, which won 2 of the last 3 Pac-12 titles with Cam Rising as a starting quarterback. Cam Rising's out for the season again. Cam Rising hurt his leg against Arizona State. He's out for the season again. Conceivably could get a medical hardship for an 8th season of eligibility. But I do think it's funny. Well, not funny. Nothing about it is funny. But I find it interesting, Kyle Whittingham's response when asked about the 8th season, where he's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it just has run its course, right? Like, I don't know. I feel really badly for him because he's been a very good quarterback at times and very entertaining to watch. But at a certain point, too, I feel like you just might have to listen to your body. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, if you're an NFL player or you think that you're an NFL player, then you might just have to try to get on a roster somewhere and start getting paid because he's just physically might not be built for the game. So, like, that is my first thought. And secondly, 8 years is a really, really long time. Like, my life, I think.
I mean, unless you're becoming a surgeon, yes, it's a long time to be in college.
I mean, maybe not as much has changed for you in the last 8 years, but I think about myself 8 years ago, and I was making like $40,000 and living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Ohio where my biggest outing of the day was getting pizza on Sundays. And by the way, glorious time. Now I have a family, I'm married, I own a home, I live in a different city. Like, there's so much has changed in my own life. And I'm like thinking, like, there's got to be a certain point where just as a person, you want to move on. Like, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know if it's the best thing for Utah, to have him back.
Yeah.
But, we'll see what happens.
I don't know. I'm kind of down for Cam Rising, showing up at Rice next year. I could see it. Like, he should just stretch this out as long as he can. He should Van Wilder this whole thing.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. And it's okay. But I wonder if this could be another year at Utah. Like, if a path to that exists.
That seems like something that Whittingham has to okay as well. Because it's one of I remember talking to Dave Clawson about this when Sam Hartman left Wake Forest. Because I think they were kind of prepared for life without Sam Hartman when he left for Notre Dame, but they just thought he was going to the NFL. And I do think, because quarterback recruiting is a very political process, and
sure,
quarterbacks, who else have you got? How many are you signing this year? When you throw an additional guy into the room who wasn't supposed to be in the room, it does change the math on that. It makes it a little more difficult. So yeah, you do have to figure out what's the return on investment here. And if they feel like they could get more conference championships out of Cam Rising, then yeah, you bring him back. If you feel like maybe this has run its course, then you say, hey, why don't you try going to the NFL? Where I do think if a healthy version of Cam Rising probably is making a roster and getting paid for several years in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just, I think the main takeaway here is I kind of feel bad for him. But on the other hand, too, is like, I know people in my life who went to college for 8 years just because they wanted to have fun. And I also understand that, like, the pool of being an athlete on a power conference football roster is pretty great. And if the NFL isn't in the cards, then I could understand the desire to want to keep doing that. And it might not be Utah. It might be somewhere else, but I think at a certain point too, like, injuries stop being a coincidence, and it's just like your body isn't built for it. And I'm at that point with him.
Christopher in the chat says Cam's going to be Jeremy Piven in PCU. Yeah, he's going to be draws. You majored in a 5,000-year-old dead language. You get what you get. Katie, you're a freshman, 500 people. Like, yeah, I can see that. I can see Cam Rising being the draws of the Utah campus. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
One more thing before we move on, because we do have Nick Roush from Kentucky Sports Radio to talk the weirdest football season anybody's ever seen. I know there's probably a lot of people going, why are you guys talking about Kentucky? Trust me, you're going to want to hear this, because we got guys who are averaging 11.7 yards a carry who are not getting the ball because they won't tie their shoes. Like, that's where Kentucky's at right now. They can beat Ole Miss, but lose to Vanderbilt and get smoked by South Carolina at home. It's the strangest season ever. So we're going to talk to Nick Roush about that in a minute. But we also need to talk about Mike Gundy, who he missed his normal press conference appearance but did his press conference audio only on Zoom because he was headbutted by a cow. Producer River, do we have that audio?
Well, I had a little run-in with my cattle over the weekend, and I guess they've been watching us play and got headbutted. So I've got a bad eye that I didn't think would be particularly enjoyable for people when they were looking at my pretty face in a live interview. But more importantly, it's full of blood and I get dizzy, and so it's not easy to be upright and be in a normal function. But other than that, I'm doing great.
He said cattle. So maybe I'm wrong in this headline. Maybe he was headbutted by a bull. I think I'd lead with that. If I was headbutted by a bull, I'm like, yeah, I was headbutted by a bull.
So you might have put this together considering the way this podcast started, but I haven't spent a lot of time around livestock in my life. And I just am trying to figure out what has to occur for that to happen. Like what do you step on its foot? Do you get too close? Is that
it's probably a
way
too
of
close
saying
thing?
Something
else
happened that wasn't that, but that's a good excuse? Like, I don't know. that is a pretty bizarre thing to hear.
Well, it's not a horse. It's not going to kick you. So the headbutt makes sense. But, Mike Gundy actually does spend time around livestock, unlike us. So you notice he called them cattle. Oh, producer River just pointed something out. Remember, Oklahoma State plays BYU Friday night. Big 12 after dark. That's a 10:15 Eastern time kick. Will Mike Gundy be wearing an eye patch? It could be his tribute. It could be his tribute to the late, great Mike Leach, who is a BYU grad.
I mean, it's all coming together, really. I mean, all it took was him to get headbutt in the head by a bull, but we'll get there. I mean, this sport. Is it just like, let me ask you this, because I've thought about this. So
did any NFL coach get headbutted by a cow this weekend? Nope.
Well, that's where my head went. But does the reason why all this bullshit happens in college football because there's just so many more teams and so many more people and the odds of this weird stuff happening are higher? Or do you think that there is something about the people who are involved with college football that allows this to be more likely? Like what? I mean, I guess every NFL team is in a major city, right?
Right.
So
you can't get paid millions to coach an NFL team in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So the type of person who gravitates to living in Stillwater, and I'm sure Mike Gundy lives a little out of town on some property, that person's probably not going to go coach the Las Vegas Raiders. That's not in their dream. That's not on their dream board. So yeah, I do think college football draws this type of person, and I love it. It makes me so happy. Not happy that Mike Gundy got headbutted by a cow. I do, because I think that would hurt like hell. But it makes me so happy that the sport has these characters and these insane situations happen, because in the pro sports, what's the weirdest thing you heard? I guess the one player who got caught with the Whizzinator in the airport, or when Jeff Kent was washing his truck and fell and hurt himself when he was a Major League Baseball player.
A video of a person smoking weed through a gas mask on the NFL draft.
But that was when he was in college.
That is true. But hey, listen, Andy, the thing that makes this so great is look at this. We've got people in the chat saying that they've been headbutted by goats multiple times. This is a multiple time thing for this person. So, hey, we're happy you're here, Christopher. Hope your head's okay. Maybe wear one of those. What do they call the things they put on the helmets now? The
guardian
hats
cap.
or whatever.
Yeah, guardian caps.
Yeah. Next time you're around your goats.
Well, hopefully Mike Gundy will get a guardian cap for when he's around his cattle. I think that's.
Well, I just
that's
did he step on someone's tail? Was he messing with it? Like, what do we like? What did you do?
I don't know. I don't think he did anything wrong to the cow. I think probably it just happened because.
Also, we have to have another discussion about this too. Like, isn't taking care of cattle a very labor-intensive, time-consuming process? Like, how does this man even have time to have cattle? I'm assuming somebody works for him that like takes care of it, right? I'm
sure he's got some people, but unlike you, he likes to get his hands dirty every once in a while.
I just don't think I can't imagine that he would have the time to do it. That's all.
Well, clearly he does, and it went awry this weekend.
Yeah.
One more tiny piece of news before we move on to our friend Nick Roush from Kentucky Sports Radio. Kirby Smart, we all remember he bumped the Mississippi State quarterback during the game. Smart was arguing with the official, ended up shoving the Mississippi State quarterback. Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, came out and said that Smart should have been flagged for that. The officials blew it on the field, should have flagged him for unsportsmanlike conduct, and that Smart has reached out to Jeff Lebby and to Van Buren, the quarterback, to say, hey, my bad, sorry. So there, big nothing burger, but I think that had been
little mini rant about this just because I really want to. Like, it's been bothering me.
By all means.
Andy, I don't know if it's because we're in like a Twitter bubble. Okay. Like, I don't know if like reasonable people act the way that people act on Twitter. But like, I saw some comparisons to Woody Hayes, and I saw people saying that this is another piece of evidence that he's running a rabid program filled with criminals who he can't control.
Woody Hayes
and all this stuff.
Punched a dude on the sideline. Punched a Clemson player on the sideline. Yeah.
Listen, if you want to criticize Kirby Smart for the long and seemingly endless driving situation there, I think that's more than fine, right? Like, I mean, there are legal issues that have happened at Georgia at a pretty rampant pace. But if you are taking what was clearly an accident and trying to conflate it into something that it wasn't, like, get a life. Like, I just like, that's not, I don't, it's so clearly obvious on the video to me. I don't know if you agree with me, Andy.
Oh, he was trying to yell at the official.
Shove somebody. He was trying to get.
I don't think he saw anybody in front of him.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing? Like, people make mistakes. The man called and apologized to both the player and the coach. Like, relax. Like, why is everybody so angry all the time and wanting to be upset and wanting to be aggressive? It's just like, God, it's so exhausting to me. I don't know. It's just like, he made a mistake. That's it. It's over.
I'm watching Nick Roush in our green room. I think he might disagree, but first, before
do you disagree, Nick?
We are going to talk. We're going to ask Nick, but first we got to talk about Rhoback. That's right, Rhoback, makers of the most comfortable clothing on the planet. I am wearing my Rhoback Performance hoodie right now. I am telling you right now, the Rhoback Performance hoodie is the most comfortable garment in the history of the world. I have, I think, 7 of them now. I think 3 of them have been stolen by my daughter because that's what happens. These things are so amazing that people will steal them. So if you buy one, you probably should just buy 2 because your significant other or one of your children is going to steal one. So just accept that because it's that good. But Rhoback makes the best hoodies, polos, Q-zips, the joggers, the new butter soft material on the joggers. Oh, awesome. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first order. Rhoback, RHOBACK.com. Load up on the hoodies. It is hoodie weather right now, where most of us are in the country, even where I am in Florida. Hoodie weather in the morning. So I know it's hoodie weather where you are too. RHOBACK.com. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first order. Let us bring in Nick Roush from Kentucky Sports Radio, our friend. We made him suffer through about 10 minutes of show, and I apologize for that because I'm bad at the clock. It's been a while since since I've done. Nick, you do live radio every day. It's been a while since I've done live radio. I've done these live podcasts where we can just get away with anything. Like there's nobody pointing at the clock.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And I enjoyed it, especially Mike Gundy getting headbutted. I just imagined a sort of Bobby Petrino neck brace, but with the eye patch. And I can confirm I've been spit on by a llama before, and that was unpleasant. They don't headbutt, they just spit, and it's disgusting. It's gross, and kind of embarrassing. But
I think this is
mama llama drama. Ari's got llama books in his trunk.
Yeah, my daughter currently
we read all those books.
Llama books. Yeah, come on, quit out of that llama drama. Okay, listen, I think this is a good opportunity for people in the chat or people listening in podcast form later to describe to us your weirdest or most uncomfortable interaction with an animal, because like I want to hear it. Like, you know, I'm trying to think of one that I've had. I saw a rattlesnake once, but I didn't mess with it. That's it for me.
My daughter got run over by a goat at the petting zoo at Animal Kingdom at Disney when she was like 3, and they gave us like 3 free stuffed animals because they were worried we were going to sue them.
Okay,
I would just say getting headbutt by a cow probably hurts. Don't walk behind horses either. If you're at I won't do that. I will not have to learn that lesson the hard way, because that broken.
How many? So you're a Kentuckian.
Yes.
So of course everybody in Kentucky knows that. Like that is a rule for life that you get beaten into your head when you live in Kentucky. How many people do you know who've been kicked by a horse?
Well, I during the bye week, I actually had to officiate a wedding at a horse farm, and my buddy who works the horse farm, sometimes you just catch a stray every once in a while. So, you know, it happens. You just don't want to take it in the wrong spot. That could be brutal. I always, there's a Kentucky tourism commercial that's like, come see the friendliest horses you've ever seen. I'm like, man, if you've been around horses, they're kind of ornery. So it'd
be kind of rough to be a urologist in Lexington, wouldn't it? I mean, how many surgeries are we doing here? You know, I don't know. Nick, before we go into
a little higher usually.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, depending on how tall you are, I mean, it could happen. I'm assuming that somebody has ruptured an impediment at some point because they got kicked in the junk by a horse. But were you disagreeing with me on the Kirby Smart thing, Nick? This is your shot.
I wish I could, but I love Kirby Smart, like basically trying to get in a fist fight every Saturday with his team, with the other teams, like that sort of energy. And it's kind of put me in the minority of the Kentucky football fan base right now, because people don't like the quote unquote undisciplined, like the edge that Georgia plays with on the field that makes them so good is kind of exemplified by the behavior of their head coach, right? Like they take their cues from the head guy. They play like him. That's what's made them awesome. And, you know, he goes over that edge every once in a while. You saw that on Saturday. And I think that's a big issue with Kentucky right now, is there's a fine line between playing with an edge versus undisciplined. A lot of people are mad at the undisciplined play by Kentucky against Vanderbilt. But I don't think people were very mad about the undisciplined play of some other players in the past. There's plenty of trash talkers in football over the years that are also really good at the sport. I'm pro trash talk, pro fight. Give me all of the extra stuff. I love it. It makes the sport more fun. And should Kirby be pushing players? No, but we don't need to take him out to the gulag for it.
The thing that I want to know is, did he push the player? Like he physically did it, right? Like, but like
it's like this. Don't walk behind
action.
Yeah. Don't walk behind a horse. Don't stand near Kirby Smart on the sideline. These are the rules. Like these are the rules.
Behind a horse. That's what happened. Like I think that's a better. No, I think if he was outwardly, like, his intent when he started walking was, I'm going to go shove that player, that's a different discussion. I just think that it was an accident that happened as a result of not paying attention to who was in front of him.
Let's talk about, instead of flags that should have been thrown, let's talk about flags that were thrown. And Nick, this Kentucky season is mystifying to me. This is the team that pushes Georgia to the brink, that goes to Oxford and beats Ole Miss, but also the same team that gets smoked by South Carolina at home as a double-digit favorite and then loses to Vandy at home as a double-digit favorite with a ton of mistakes. Like, I think there was a block in the back with it. They finally put Barry Brown in to return a punt because he's a great kickoff return guy. They wanted a spark. They let him return a punt. He has the best punt return they've had all season. It is negated by a block in the back penalty. Like, that is Kentucky's season in a nutshell.
They were the least penalized team in the SEC and then committed 12 penalties for 106 yards. And that doesn't, I mean, that was a 30-yard swing. That doesn't factor in where the field position would have been if they didn't commit that penalty late on the punt return. They also had their best player on offense, their most consistent player on offense, Dane Key. He gets it to 3rd and 2, makes a great catch, and then smacks a Wendy guy on the back of the helmet. 15-yard penalty, knocks him out of field goal range. That's 3 points off the board at least. And you go back to their kicker hasn't missed a kick all year. It's been a strength of their team. They missed a field goal and missed a PAT because he didn't even get to swing his leg. They couldn't get the hold down, right? Like, it's just like what's up is down, what's left is right. Like, everything that you seem to think you know this team, and then you don't. You thought when the wheels were spinning in that South Carolina game, like, oh God, here we go again. The wheels might just be falling off. They come out against Georgia and play very well. And after that Ole Miss game, the offense finally starts to get something going. You think they're heading in the right direction, and then they get inside the 30-yard line 5 times. 3 times they get 0 points. And I feel like the Bernie Sanders meme where it's the defense saying, I'm coming to you again, asking you for help, because the offense, the most points they've scored in the SEC this year is 20. The defense has held every team except South Carolina to its season low point total. The defense is very good. They're 15th in SP+. They're good. This might be his best defense ever. But the offense can't score points. They can't get out of their own way. They can't stop making mistakes, and it cost them a game they should have won against Vanderbilt on Saturday at Kroger Field.
And afterward, Mark Stoops is talking to Tom Leach from the Kentucky, their flagship network on the postgame show, and basically says, "This is bullshit. I'm as frustrated as it." Now, he did say it's on me. I do appreciate that he said, "I know it's on me," because he's not really throwing his players under the bus. It's more like, hey, we're all messing up here. We got to get this figured out. They're going to Florida this week, Nick. It's a strange situation because I think the Florida team we saw against Miami and Texas A&M, I would have said there's that team has no shot against Kentucky. But the one that played against Tennessee, I kind of think they got a shot.
Both teams are in a weird spot, but here's another fun stat, because there are some fun Mark Stoops stats. I don't like the record against teams with a winning record in the SEC, because that's just like,
well, I don't think you have to worry about that with Florida this week. So
no, you don't have to worry about that. But the one record that is really bad as of late and is not great for your fan base, they've lost 6 straight SEC home games. They are 2-10 in their last 12. 2 losses to South Carolina, 2 losses to Vanderbilt, 2 losses to Tennessee in that span. And they're 5-6 on the road in that span. They are a better road team than they are at home. And yes, it's great to win on the road, but the people that are paying for your players to be there, the people that are filling your stadium, you can't have them leave your stadium being ticked off because they lost another game to Vanderbilt. Like, it's very bad on the long term. So it would not surprise me if Kentucky went out and just steamrolled Florida again, because Mark Stoops, he can't get up after the bye. I think 5-9 now after the bye so far as the Kentucky head coach. But he also gets these guys ready to beat Florida. 4 out of the last 6, 3 straight. He gets them ready to beat Louisville. Like, he's good in these games, in these spots. So right now, nothing would, like, the funniest thing would be they go beat Florida and then they lose to Auburn, even when Auburn tries to pick 6 their way to a loss.
It is amazing. And so the line on this game, I believe it opened as Florida as a 2.5-point favorite. It's been bet down 1.5 right now. I actually seen it as low as 1 in some places today. So people are on Kentucky in this game. And I tend to agree with you about the way Stoops plays Florida, and particularly plays Billy Napier. Because I think Billy Napier aspires to play a brand of football like Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops has been doing it longer and better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably where they come. Because, like, I go back to 2 years ago, Anthony Richardson's coming off this great game against Utah. They beat the eventual Pac-12 champs in the season opener. and they put Anthony Richardson in a blender in that game. So now you get DJ Lagway, who's making his second start. He's a true freshman. Flashes of like, this guy's going to be good. You can tell. But he's also a freshman playing against a defense that likes to mess with freshmen's heads.
Yeah, they're pretty good at it because this front is really good. And as much as Deion Walker, he's the NFL guy that, like, you look at that guy, that's an NFL football player, right? But they have a lot of depth across the board in that front seven. And I know Jamon Dumas-Johnson, another player that stole a lot of headlines, the former All-American from Georgia who transferred this offseason. But De'Aaron Jackson's leading the team in tackles. He's got 5 career interceptions now. He picked off Diego Pavia the first time Pavia's turned it over once this year. He's a really good ball player. Now, there are some injuries in the secondary. Maxwell Harrison's their NFL guy who he's going to be sidelined for some time. But this defense is really good. And you're playing, I actually think that Mertz would have been a better matchup for Florida against the Kentucky defense because Dinkin and Duncan down the field, that's kind of what they give you. He would have taken that a lot away. That would have been frustrating. And Lagway, he can make some throws. There's no doubt about it. And he's probably going to make 1 or 2. But I think there's going to be a lot of negative plays. They're top 5 nationally in havoc rate. I think they'll get after him and force some mistakes. And that's what's going to make it at least entertaining. If nothing else with Kentucky, you're getting something. It might not be pretty to look at all the time because they don't really score points, but you never know what you're going to get. It's a roll the dice, SEC Network, Saturday night special. Cole Kubelik and Tom Hart and Jordan Rogers, they're going to be getting sick of the Cats because they are just pigeonholed in that spot. Like, just good enough to be like, I think I'll check it out, but not good enough to be that ABC game.
Nick, can I just ask you, because like Andy and I have had like a million discussions about Mark Stoops having the best job in America. And then all of a sudden this year, it seems to be like rocky and contentious at times for the first time in maybe his entire tenure. What is, because you have a better pulse on the Kentucky fan base probably than anybody on earth, right? So what is the Kentucky fans' thought of Mark Stoops right now? And do you think he has the best job in America?
It's really funny because, Ari, was that a month ago, the South Carolina game? And you had a lot of frustrations from the Texas A&M gig last year, the flirtation there. And then he told fans to pony up on his radio show. You want good players after we lost to Georgia? They got good players. You can pony up and buy them now. They were very mad about those two things. And rightfully so or not, that's up for debate, but they were very upset about that. That stuff was really bubbling under the surface. And then when they lost to Shane Beamer again, it was just, I'm done with him. I'm completely done with him. This guy's an idiot. He doesn't even want to coach here anymore. Well, just look at him. He doesn't want to be here. He wants to be at A&M. And then they beat Ole Miss, and he's just like flexing on everybody. And it really put people in a pretzel. And I think they still are kind of in this pretzel where they like Mark Stoops and they're grateful for what he's done. But I think the waters got chummed with John Calipari's departure last year, where things were getting stale and you're seeing a lot of the same mistakes over. You have some big moments, right? Like Kentucky goes and beats Tennessee in basketball, or they beat North Carolina. And like you, so you have these moments, you have the Ole Miss win, but then you have these other times where you're just like, what? Why are we talking about a guy who can't tie his shoes? We got players who can't tie their shoes. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Let's explain that, because Jamarian Wilcox is what appears to be a very exciting player. And in 3 touches against Vandy, he averaged 11.7 yards a touch. Let's show the video, Producer River, of Mark Stoops explaining why he's not getting more touches.
Well, I mean, like, here's a simple thing. Tie your shoes. Like, right? Tie your shoes. He doesn't tie his shoes. So he runs it, but his shoe falls off, so he's got to come out. That would help.
What in the world is that?
That there was an awkward silence there afterwards, but Wilcox is this kid, Kentucky got him over Clemson from the Atlanta area, and you're like, oh, well, maybe he could be this big play explosive back. And there was always the line that I always love, Andy, is he needs to start doing things the right way, which in this instance, Stoops used that as an example because I guess in his mind, it wasn't as bad as saying like he's not showing up for meetings. He doesn't know the plays. And so that was his like, hey, tie your shoes, buddy. And you know what? We might be willing to forgive the other things, but we're forgiving some stuff and still letting you play. And you're still not even doing the bare minimum to just stay on the field. So I think that was,
But
Stoops took some bullets from South Carolina, but he's getting a little mad at his players now. He's getting a little
Can I
frustrated.
interject though? As bad as that is, and I know you want to correct that, if the person averages 11 yards every time they touch the ball, isn't your job to win games? Should you not work on managing that situation behind the scenes and let him touch the ball?
It was halfway through the second quarter, and Wilcox didn't have a touch. And at KSR and KSR Plus all week, we were writing about like, hey, this guy's probably going to have a big game. I had $2 to win 400 if he had 2 touchdowns. Like it was teed up for him to have a big game, and he found his way into the doghouse. I don't know what it was, but it was clear they didn't want to play him because they were frustrated with whatever he was doing. And is there a way to get around it? Yes.
Velcro shoes. That's the way.
Yeah,
Scott Aldrich in the chat.
Oh yeah,
with
yeah.
the
Here we go.
solution.
Yeah.
with the solution, Velcro shoes. Or you can have the trainer spat him up. Just tie him, tape all around the laces. They're never coming off.
And it's a great look.
I think it is too. I mean, it's like taping your ankles. You kind of tape the shoe to the foot. So boom, solves both issues. But it feels like right now, and it kind of goes back to Ari's question, is like there's this stuff that's always been there, and you're in year 12 now, and it's starting to boil a little bit more, where the offense is bad. It's just been bad. You can point to individual reasons, but it's been 12 years, and you still have offensive issues, right? That isn't going anywhere. Losing at home, that's amplifying things. That's making things much worse. All of this stuff, it's like winning cures a lot of ill wills. And the way the schedule's set up, this might be his first losing or 500 season. And personally, as somebody who remembers watching Hal Mummy football, where it was 800 yards, but giving up 80 points and losing football games, like I'm willing to forgive Stoops and let him have enough rope to overcome one of these lackluster backstep years. I don't know how much patience a lot of other people have. And the other thing is you're worried about the next person up. Getting rid of Cal, Kentucky will find a good basketball coach. It's Kentucky basketball. People are worried that you're getting a little tired of Stoops. Who's up next? They like John Summerall at Tulane.
It's John Summerall. Yeah, I mean, John Summerall was getting hired if Stoops went to A&M. So,
well, and now people are afraid that if Lane leaves and takes Billy Napier's job, John Summerall also worked at Ole Miss. Does Ole Miss take John Summerall before Kentucky can get their guy? So there's just a lot of juggling in the air.
Or would Florida hire John Summerall? No, wait, they're not hiring
no more G5. Out on G5.
A group of 5 coach from Louisiana, a school in Louisiana. No, never mind. Nick, what Kentucky team do you think shows up? I know Chip Trainum might play this week, the Ohio State transfer. He's been out all season with a broken hand. But what Kentucky team do you think? And I realize this is a loaded question. Do you think will show up in Gainesville on Saturday?
Ahead of the season, Ole Miss was circled because they had there was a lot of, all right, Ole Miss ain't played anybody yet. Kentucky can make them one-dimensional. This can work. Something about the Florida game always worried me, and it's mostly just my anxiety as a person who's watched Kentucky football for 30 years, and that's okay. Like we can't. Surely they're not going to let us keep getting away with this, right? Like eventually, that stupid orange logo has got to take over and just beat us because that's what they do, right? That's what we became conditioned to doing. It's been 4 out of 6 years. Our luck's got to run out at some point. So like that, but it's Billy Napier, and like they're having to mic up their defense in practice to force them to talk. You know what? It might work. Maybe taping the shoes to Jamarian Wilcox, that's what they need. So let's tape Wilcox's shoes on. He'll go out. He'll run for enough yards. What I don't know. So the total 42.5, that's 22 too many points. This is like an Iowa under situation. That's got to be your new pick segment, Andy. Iowa.
Oh,
Stoops isn't going to Iowa. He's just making Kentucky Iowa. And there you go. There's your new They're 4-1 or 5-1 now against the under this year. There you go.
First of all, that's a great T-shirt that y'all need to sell at KSR. Make Kentucky, Iowa. This is perfect, and I think you're right on the unders. We should do Kentucky unders because we're an Iowa over podcast now. We've decided that we're officially an Iowa over podcast, so we do need to find another under team. Kentucky under would be good. And look, if you watched the Florida game last week, Florida's figured out how to play defense apparently. So I think the under might hit here. I think that's a great call.
We're living in a weird time, and Ari, I think you mentioned this recently. There's a lot of people who the 07 is this White House, this sort of guiding light as like the chaos season. This isn't the same kind of chaos, but you had back-to-back number ones lose. You've got all these cross. It's a whole new thing. And then meanwhile, Iowa's hitting overs. Like there is some weird stuff happening. It's not quite 07 weird, but it's getting up there. Like,
I mean, listen, we're coming up on Halloween. It's an election year. There's a lot happening in the atmosphere right now. So I don't know what's going to happen, but we do feel like things are kind of, we got climate issues. Like it's just a weird time in this world.
Well, we're not going to get into any of that, but we will.
I just thought I would bring up the triple crown of thing that we shouldn't talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. Ari wants to talk about cow farts. I want to talk about cow headbutts. So we're going to focus on that. Nick, thank you so much. We'll see you in Gainesville this week. Enjoy the trip. It was good last time for Kentucky. We'll see which Kentucky comes. Whatever Kentucky gets on the plane, just let me know beforehand so I know what to expect.
Yeah, expect the unexpected with Kentucky football this season. I mean, Vanderbilt's the SEC. It's there's never a dull moment. Vanderbilt's probably going to host College Game Day next week. They're throwing goalposts in the river. Just Shane Beamer's getting onside kicks. I know that works, but it's still not working. Like this is fun. It's not always fun if you're for your specific team, but it is fun to point and laugh from afar. So Tennessee fans, I know you're out there. I know you want me to get triggered, but hey, I don't have an $8 million volleyball player who can't throw a go ball. So it's okay. It's okay, guys. Hypo system's fine. You're going to be fine. Maybe you'll find a quarterback who can hit some open receivers. It couldn't against Florida. You'll probably figure it out against Kentucky, but it's okay. As long as you're not winning national titles, doesn't look like you're going to be doing it with that guy. So fine by me. Have fun with that guy.
I don't know where that was, Nick. But first of all, go watch the show back and then look at Andy in my face when you said that. And then also, I don't know if you know this, but producer River is behind the scenes here. Andy, did you get a scope of his face when he said that?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
because he's a Tennessee
grad.
Like he's like
thing that the people of Pompeii saw as the lava came down. Like it was like
no, he was more the Alonzo Mourning gift because he's thinking about. Yeah. He's like, how can he say that about Nico? And then he thinks back to the Florida game. He's like, well, actually, that's kind of what happened. Oh boy,
do you get Tennessee tidal waves in your mentions, Nick?
I am the worst guy has an opinion that might be right. Makes a good opinion, right? The onion gift, that's me. I'm even bald like that guy too. So Tennessee fans, I warned you about the volleyball player. Just remember this: when bad things happen, who told you about it first?
Bump set spike with Nick Roush. Thank you so much. Oh my God, that was unexpected. I did see Nick tweet that earlier today, so I knew he had it in the chamber. I knew there was going to be a volleyball player reference at some point.
Completely blindsided by that.
By the way, like Kentucky doesn't beat Tennessee, so except for when Jeremy Pruitt has Jerry Garantano just throw pick sixes.
How many years off of your life on average, if you're a Kentucky fan, do you think they would take to have him on their team this year?
Nico?
Yeah.
I think they'd like a lot of them. I think they shave a couple years off.
Yeah.
But it's a discussion to have, and we will have that discussion tomorrow or Thursday. We'll have to figure out which day that slots in best. But we do need to have that
whether
discussion.
Or not volleyball is the right sport to hone your skills in the offseason for football. Is that what you're talking about?
Possibly that, maybe. But yes, the Nico discussion, because
are we there? So we're there. We're there.
Joe Milton. Nico. We're not going to do it right now. we are going to do it eventually. But yes, we do need to have, there were some Joe Milton-esque tendencies displayed against Florida that's got to get corrected. Or you
But I
don't
don't
beat
mean
Alabama.
they're talking about it right now. I mean, like, we're there at that point of the season where we need to have the discussion this week.
We do. We do need to have a discussion this week. Got a Tennessee fan in the chat says he's crying. He was crying after we beat them last year. Yes, he was. I had Nick on the show, and he cried very hard after Tennessee beat Kentucky last year. Speaking of Nico, if you'd like to check out what the folks at PrizePicks think Nico's going to do, well, they've already got some numbers on the board for this weekend's college football games. Download that PrizePicks app, best daily fantasy game in America. Play $5, get $50 instantly with the code STAPLES. So Nico's number for passing yards against Alabama, Ari, 199.5. So if you think he's going to do more than that, you would click more than. If you think he's going to do less than that, you would click less than. And then you would just pick one more player. And it could be a college football player, could be an NFL player, could be somebody in soccer, could be in Major League Baseball. As few as 2 squares, and the more squares you pick, the higher the potential payout. But yeah, there are already squares for Tennessee, Alabama, and for Georgia, Texas. So whatever you think Nico's going to do, whatever you think Jalen Milroe is going to do, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, those squares are already there. So Producer Rivers showing one I lost and one I won from last weekend. Kyle McCord, Garrett Green, and Jeremiah Smith hooked me up last weekend. Haj Malik Williams tried to. But yeah, we gave it a shot. Play 5. Get $50 instantly using the code STAPLES when you download that PrizePicks app. All right, Ari. We do have to talk about Dan Lanning being a mastermind. And I realize that this pisses off Washington fans because they're 3-0 against him so far. But what he did against against Ohio State was pretty spectacular. So for those who don't know, what Dan Lanning did is he put 12 people on. He calls timeout. This is as the game is winding down. And Ohio State is getting close to an attempt at what would be a game-winning field goal. Oregon's up 1 point here. Dan Lanning calls timeout, puts 12 men on the field, knowing he's going to get called for it. But the play takes seconds off the clock. And so he's happy for that to give up those yards for the 12 men on the field to take the seconds off the clock. Now, if you don't know your history, you've not seen this before, but this is what Buddy Ryan did when he was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. He called it the Polish goal line. He put 14 players in on the goal line, knowing they would call it to shorten the game. He essentially wanted to make it where the opponent only had 1 play left. Because remember, a defensive penalty, you can't end on a defensive penalty. So basically ran the clock out and made it where the opponent had 1 play left. And if you stop that play, you win. And that is kind of where Dan Lanning went with this one. And it was brilliant. One more Buddy Ryan thing. He actually did it with a punt at one point also. Put 14 men on the punt team. The officials didn't see it and didn't call it. Buddy Ryan got asked about it after the game. They're like, do you think you shouldn't have done that? And he's like, no, I should have put 15 out there.
Yeah. So the thing that I'll say is that it's a very savvy call, right? Like to have the frame of reference to know your situation in the game, what you'll want to do in order to shorten that game. And then also having worked and repped that in practice enough to run it efficiently, right? Like they did that intentionally and it helped them win. And I think that it is an interesting viewpoint because Ohio State during the same period of time was 100% rattled by the clock, So like on one hand, you have a coach who has not only done something in the game that is clever, but has envisioned this scenario and worked on it in practice so that his players were aware of what to do and how to execute that plan when the game was on the line. We're talking just mere seconds left, right? And on the other hand, you have a coach who was surprised by the clock restarting and them scrambling and then eventually running the game out with Will Howard sliding with the time expiring. So like that to me, like of all the criticisms that you want to have of Ryan Day, I think that's probably where I would go first. But also Dan Lanning being a genius because of course that's the perfect call. Now, if you have a senior quarterback like Will Howard who recognizes what's being done. I can't imagine. Like, I always marvel, Andy, at how quickly people count all the players, because every time I try to do it, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like how quickly can a quarterback like acknowledge or understand or feel that there are 12 men on the field? Because if Howard would just spike the ball,
think about if you do things over and over again and everything looks the same way, like that 12th person is going to stick out like a sore thumb. That's why the quarterbacks and the free safeties, who are usually the ones responsible for noticing those things, like they notice them immediately. And there's somebody on the sidelines that's counting, and remember, the back judge is also counting the defense.
So how much percent do you put on, like it's a smart play, but what if Will Howard would have spiked the ball? Like, if he would have recognized that there are 12, if there were 12 men on the field, spike the ball, take the 5 yards, then move on from there, because they're probably, regardless of where they were on the field, they were probably in a position where it would have made it a field goal attempt. It might have been a really long one, but there was a risk to that. It wasn't just like, we're going to put 12 men out there, we're going to stop a play from happening, and we're going to waste time. It worked perfectly, but if the other team recognizes what you're doing, they can also spike the ball, stop the clock, reset the play clock, take the 5 yards, and do it again. So like that, there is a risk to it, but Ohio State was not in a position, both in what they were doing and what Oregon was doing, to acknowledge that, or not acknowledge it, to recognize that and take it as a benefit. It hurt them.
Yeah. All In says, is it cheating if it's in the rules? Should probably be changed. It's not cheating because it's using the rules to your advantage. Now, is there a way to close the loophole? Maybe. I would need this. We need to ask somebody who, like, I'll check with our guy John McDade, who's the SEC coordinator of officials, because I'm curious. Because usually when you come up with a solution for this, somebody who's been an actual official will go, well, you can't do that because the other team will then do this. And my question is, is it possible to even change the rules in this way, where when the defense does this, it stops the clock, or you go back to the original time on the clock before the play was run? Like the offense, you don't let the offense do that, because obviously the offense would just use that to run out the clock. But could you do that? I don't know if that's something that you could use to close the loophole, because remember, Buddy Ryan did this 30 years ago, and they never changed the rules in the NFL.
Well, here's the point, Andy, and I think Connor here in the chat said it best. This is the entire point we're trying to make. It doesn't matter if the situation had to be right, to have the composure to make the call as a coach at that point in the game, ice in the veins. Like, I think that is the takeaway.
I agree completely. Because you can look like a moron. Like, remember, and now Derek Dooley didn't put 13 guys, and it was his defensive coordinator, didn't put 13 guys on the field on purpose against LSU in 2010. And they ended up looking terrible from that. Well, we'll have to ask our guy T-Bob Aber about that, because he was playing in that game. He was the center on that play. But you can also look like a clown. Like, what if Ohio State had scored on the play with 12 men on the field? Like, here's my question. Shouldn't he have put 14 men on the field, or 15?
Yeah.
Like
the 12
shouldn't he have done that?
Yeah, it doesn't guarantee you to get a stop. I mean, I think it probably certainly helps. But
it helps a lot. But
with Ohio State's receivers, I guess I wouldn't put it past them to getting a first down or moving the ball. The thing that is so interesting to me is that Ohio State did have the ball inside the 30, down by 1, with enough time left to at least try to run the ball, call timeout, and attempt a field goal. Now, the offensive pass interference, if you want to get bent out of shape about that, go ahead. But Ohio State got away with an interception touchdown scenario earlier in the game that we don't talk about. So, like, I don't really get wound up on coaching or ref calls. But I think that the main takeaway here is that Dan Lanning, again, ice and veins, and worked on something. And Ohio State was running around with chickens, like chickens with their heads cut off at the end of the game. Now,
well, it's the same thing. We killed Marcus Freeman for the game against Ohio State last year, where they only had 10 men on the field, and they didn't have a way to stop the stop play so they could get the 11th guy on the field. So, yeah,
like, this is Andy, I know we're probably not supposed to react to this stuff, but okay. Comments like this. Glazing Dan Lanning, boy, this is going to get old real fast. Why wouldn't we compliment a guy who just won a top 5 game against Ohio State at home for the first time? Like, what do you want out of the show?
They don't want us to say anything nice about anybody except their team. And then it's not everybody. That's a certain kind of person. Like a certain kind of person thinks if you say something nice about one person, it means you think every other person on earth sucks. It's like, sort of the ethos of the internet.
There couldn't be a more appropriate time to discuss Dan Lanning. It's bizarre. Yeah. Okay. But here's the thing. You want to have another take. And this is something that I think is important, not just in the Ohio State perspective or the Oregon perspective, but the entire country. The thing that I love about really high-level coaching is when you are playing a game against a team and you do things that the other team couldn't foresee, right? Like you have special packages or you have an ace in your sleeve that you work on in practice every day. He didn't just like come up with this on the sideline, tap someone on the ass and say, go into the football game. This is a situational thing that they repped in practice.
They've clearly prepped for this. And it reminded me of, so Belichick did this thing years ago where they used a delay of game. Like they took delay of game penalties on offense to try to wind the clock down. And so when Mike Vrabel, who used to play for Bill Belichick, was playing against Bill Belichick as the Titans head coach, he did the same thing to Belichick. Like he drained almost 2 minutes off the clock using this delay of game tactic and was just grinning on the sideline across the sideline at Bill Belichick. Like you taught me. I learned it from watching you, Dad.
Yeah, well, you'll have to explain that one to me because I'm not familiar with how a delay of game penalty takes more time off the clock than otherwise. So I don't know how that works because the clock stops after an offensive penalty. Well,
no. It comes at like because you could theoretically, like, if let's say an offense was trying to buy time, you could have a committed delay of game to purposely stop the clock. That's why they wind the clock on the ready for play after delay of game. So if you get called, if you're an offense and you get called for delay of game, as soon as they set the ball back down, they start the clock again because they don't want people using delay of game to stop the clock. He was using delay of game to run the clock out.
So just so I understand this correctly, if you are if you have the ball, you can at the opposing 10-yard line, you could delay of game the clock all the way out the entire quarter.
Yeah, you probably could, unless the opposing coach wanted to call timeout.
I didn't know
if the opposing coach then called timeout, if it's coming out of a dead ball, the clock still stopped.
I've played Madden and NCAA a lot, and I've really wanted to run out the clock a lot. And every single time I get a delay of game penalty, then that's it. I've got to run a play. So I didn't know that you could do that. So, okay, well, thanks for teaching me football, Andy.
Well, no, thank Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel. But I do love that. I love when the guys know their history, understand how the rules work, and use that understanding of the rules in a big spot, because the stones it takes to do that. Now, I'll quit. The only quibble I'll have is why 12 and not 14 or 15? Because if you're going to do it and make it obvious, because you want to get called, like you want it to get called.
I think that the answer to this question, I think the answer to your question is this, Andy. If you put 15 players on the field, that would look like a clown show. Like there would be, like, I think 12 can blend in. 15, I think it would be apparent to everybody, and you would probably increase the likelihood that Will Howard spikes the ball and it comes back to backfire.
Yeah, when my dad was a high school assistant football coach, and he was the girls basketball coach at the school, he coached the Powder Puff team one year, and his major strategic initiative for that game was, I'm going to play 12 players until someone notices. He made it half a quarter. So it's
every single time they call 12 men on the field while watching football, I did not recognize it on my own. I don't count quickly.
As Farrah says in the chat, Ohio State could have made a play and declined the penalty. Too much risk. That's why I say put 15 on the field. Because yes, with 12 players, when Emeka Ibuka and Jeremiah Smith are two of the receivers on the field, you actually still may get burned with 12 players. You probably need 15. But that's the only quibble I have. Otherwise, genius.
No, there's no reason to quibble because it worked, right? Like he knew the situation. He did something that worked. Like you can always go, well, what if somebody would have done this or somebody done that? Like the only thing you can analyze is did the thing that you tried to do work? That's coaching, right? So, listen, I think that this guy is, not to keep blowing smoke up everyone, is one of the best coaches in college football in rising in the sport. I think that in 3 to 5 years, if not next year, we will consider him on the pantheon of the greats in the sport. And I think I would probably, venture to put him in my top 4 if I did a coaching list. Maybe we'll do that in the offseason and steal it from Bruce and Stu and then look at them in the eyes and be like, yeah, we stole that. We stole that.
We definitely stole that.
What's Stu going to do? What's Stewart going to do?
I'm worried about what Bruce is going to do. Have you seen how many pull-ups?
Yeah, that's true. I know, but it'd be me and you versus Bruce. Yeah.
So, Oregon, Dan Lanning's next responsibility. You covered a lot of Big Ten football, Ari. Dan Lanning now has to get a team ready to go to West Lafayette. So
it's a black hole. It's a black hole out there. If you go to West Lafayette on the wrong day, I don't know if that's my Ohio State brain, but there's a lot of weird things that go on in that little town.
So that's a Friday night game. Oregon is a 27.5-point favorite. I don't know that I want that I'm down on Oregon covering in this game. This could be full of grab ass, but I think Oregon probably wins it.
Yeah.
What a Friday night, Ari. You got Oregon, Purdue, and then you potentially eye-patched Mike Gundy in Provo.
Yeah, no, great appetizers this week. I think that Oregon might just be running off with it now. Like, I'm really impressed. The thing that I love about this is that if you go look at the box score of the Ohio State-Oregon game, which I looked at extensively yesterday, statistically, like the two teams were identical, right? Like they played what I thought was pretty high-level football on both sides of the ball, and you had two really good teams going at it in a game that was decided by 1 point. Like that Oregon is equipped to do that with Ohio State, with what that Ohio State team is built like if they are feeling themselves, Oregon, this is like they should beat Purdue by like 50, right? Like, I mean, I don't know the emotion always of coming off of a big win, in a short week. I think you could kind of talk yourself into Oregon playing flat, but I think that I view what they did against Ohio State as the, turbo jet engine to like ascension into awesomeness. I would not want to be Purdue right now. Yeah.
I think there's more. See, I think you're being a prisoner of the moment. You're assuming that Oregon just rocket ship from here. That's not how 18 to 22-year-olds work, especially when they haven't been doing this the whole time.
Purdue is capital B bad though.
They also went down 24 and forced overtime against Illinois last week. So it's not they're having a moment here. All right, we'll see. I think it's going to be grab-ass central. Oregon's going to win. Just don't know by how much.
One last thing I want to say about Oregon. Can I do it?
Yeah.
So I think the stat of teams going on the West Coast from the Midwest or the East is like three
time zones. And basically, if you go to LA and play UCLA or USC, you win. And if you go the other direction, you lose. That's if you're UCLA going the other direction, you lose, basically.
Oh, so it's a fake stat?
Yeah, kind of fake.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna make note is that Oregon has to go to the Midwest 3 times.
Yeah. The way you win is you take a bus 90 minutes before you get on the plane, and that settles your nerves. That's how you win.
To Harrisburg, and you get yourself a tasty cake. But the only point I was going to make is that Oregon does have to fly to the Midwest 3 times for the rest of this year, don't they? They've got to go to Wisconsin. They've got to go to Purdue this week, and they have got to go to Michigan. So maybe there's if you're a believer of the body clock thing, maybe there's something that could happen there.
We shall see. We shall see. Ari, one more thing. We're going to talk about fried food. We do. We hit the State Fair of Texas on Saturday before the Texas-Oklahoma game. There's Big Tex. So what do we have? We had deep fried deviled eggs. We had deep fried ribs. We had a Korean corn dog that has melted cheese on the top under the corn, batter, but also covered in spicy Cheeto dust. And we had a bacon wrapped turkey leg. Now that wasn't fried; that was smoked. But what was your favorite thing you had?
The favorite thing I had was the Cheeto covered corn dog. The one gripe I have about it, because if you eat something like that, it's overpowering, right? Like if I ate, I couldn't eat the whole thing, and I'm somebody who can put food down. Is it took 5 bites at the top of it to get to the hot dog part? Like it was just fried cheese with the
I don't
Dorito
have a problem
stuff.
with fried cheese.
Well, you're
I
Mr.
probably should've-
Anti-mozzarella stick, so I don't. I
but
thought
this
you
was
would.
cooked. This was cooked perfectly. Our guy, because I said, "Can I do it without the spicy mayo?" He's like, "No, that's the only way to get this Cheeto dust to stick." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." This is kind of like the spicy mayo on sushi. Like it just sort of blends into the whole thing. But I thought the cheese was great because it was perfectly melted. It was at the perfect temperature. It was not burn your mouth hot. It was not cold and mealy. It was perfect. I even got a really good cheese pull on my second bite that I blew it. My son was just killing me for ruining the cheese pull because he said I had an elite cheese pull and I just threw it away.
I'm watching this movie, and I don't know if this is how it was when you had young children, Andy, but I can only watch movies in like 20-minute increments now because I don't have like an hour and a half to lay there. And I'm watching a movie called Flamin' Hot. It's about a Mexican janitor from Southern California who worked in the Frito-Lay factory who like used Mexican spices and herbs and stuff to like create the Flaming Hot flavor for the Cheeto Frito brand. And I think it's a really interesting thing. And it's like, that is a very underutilized like mixture. Like you could make like, and I don't know that it would be like the seasoning part of it shouldn't be that unhealthy, right? Like I think that the Flaming Hot Cheeto powder could be used if the powder isn't just like corn chips that are grounded. Like
you ready? You ready? I'm going to give somebody I need somebody with a food science degree probably to make this work. Here's what I want. Spicy Cheeto dust incorporated into the batter for country fried steak.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could be anything or just use that. So like I do this thing with Britt where we make chicken cutlets, but we put them in the air fryer. And instead of using like wheat or flour, we use almond meal. And then you take those protein chips that have like the spice to it, ground those up, and then make the batter and then put it in the air fryer. And it's actually really good, and there's no carbs in it, or it's not as bad for you as it would be if you deep fried it with with flour. I think that you could have flaming hot everything. Like it doesn't just have to be chips. Like I think flaming hot chicken cutlets, flaming hot chicken wings, flaming hot crackers. Like I think it should be on everything. But Andy, speaking of food takes. The best thing that we ate, I changed my mind because I forgot
Oh, yeah. No, go ahead.
Was the deep fried rib. The deep fried rib was unbelievably good. And it wasn't just like gimmicky good. Like there's no other real walk of life that you would eat that corn dog. Like I wouldn't go eat that on Tuesday at noon.
You wouldn't
like
seek that out. Yeah.
I would not seek that out. But if fried ribs were a thing everywhere, like that would be a thing I would order, like at a restaurant.
So Fox Brothers Barbecue in Atlanta would do the fried ribs as an appetizer a lot of the time. I don't know if they still do, but I always liked them there. And you're right. The deep fried rib, because, sometimes you don't get the best quality ribs and you smoke them up and they're okay, but you kind of, a lot of the times you're sort of bound by what you're working with. Those you can deep fry and those are going to turn out great every time because of the way it's being cooked. So it actually takes away a margin for error. And yeah, that's one of those, I think deep fried spare ribs would be great on any menu, anywhere, anytime.
And I also thought that the meat that was on them, I'm actually taking my daughter to the fair on Thursday, so I might have to run it back. Thursday night, I'm taking her to meet her mom there. So I might have to like dabble in some other things that we didn't eat. When we were
She's
there,
already
'cause
met
there's a lot
her
of
mom.
different
Her mom actually lives in the house too. I don't want everybody she's not meeting her mom for the first time.
Not for the first time. We're meeting her at the fair. Yeah, thank you for saving me there.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there are times that my wife does wish she could get away from me. I do think that I'm going to have to try some new stuff. Like the deep fried gimmick is good. I still think that the best thing that you could possibly deep fry is an Oreo. That you
And they got those there. They got plenty of those.
And I ate half of one of Chris Vanini's in the press box, and I thought that was really good. But it's just a wholesome place. If you can get past what might be going on behind the scenes at the carnival to enjoy the entertainment at the front of the carnival, then I think that it's a nice little place.
Shout out to Rusty at the carnival at the fair who pointed us to the spicy Cheeto corn dog booth because we couldn't find it. He's like, oh, don't worry, I know where it is. He's like, just go around here in that corner and you're right there.
This is exactly what happened. This is exactly what happened. I walked up and I said, "Hey, Rust." I didn't say, "Hey, Rusty." I said, "Hey, bud."
You didn't know his name was Rusty.
Not.
He's like, "Tell him Rusty sent you."
I said, "You might not know where this is because the carnival is like, if somebody texts you, where are you in the carnival?" To me, I think it's
the Texas State Fair is a massive whole thing.
Yeah,
there's a whole ass mattress store in there.
Yeah. So, but I said, you might not know this. I don't mean to be an asshole, but do you know where the Cheeto corn dog is? And he goes, "Oh, wait, no." I said, you might not know where this is. And he goes, "I know where it is." Before I even asked him, and he goes, "You're looking for the corn dogs, right?" And I'm like, oh my God, he knew what I was going to ask him before. And he goes, "Yeah, go around the corner, take a left, take a right, whatever. Tell him Rusty sent you." Let me tell you something, Andy. Rusty has seen some shit. Okay. Like, I don't know what it is, but this is a carny of all carnies. And like, I'm happy I met the guy. I don't know what goes on between the hours of 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. for that man. I'm just happy.
I want the prestige HBO series, 8 episodes every Sunday night at 9 about Rusty's life. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, he's been through the ringer, but he knew where to go. He knew where to go, and I'm thankful for him. So thank you for showing us. And it was kind of hard to have all those deep fried carbs before covering a football game, but then we hit banana pudding on Saturday in the press box, and I got to tell you, it wasn't the best day for the calorie deficit for me. But hey, you know what? Today, going to the gym after this, gonna have some grilled chicken for the next 7 meals and try to like work back off what I ate over the weekend.
That's what you do. You splurge, you suffer, only to splurge again.
You didn't tell them the people what we had for dinner during the Ohio State Oregon game either. That was the same day.
Well, we did have a little cheesy bread, and then of course we went to Terry Black's in Dallas yesterday for lunch.
Yeah,
had a beef rib. Ran into some very nice Kentucky fans who are fans of the show, father and son who had gone to Dallas to see a Cowboys game, and unfortunately, they saw the Lions-Cowboys game. That was not great, not a great weekend for them. Their college team lost to Vandy, and their pro team got blown out. But they got Terry Black's, and the brisket sandwich that our man had looked spectacular. The beef rib we had was perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like ask you about what you think the calories and that stuff is, but like I feel like I should go there every day for lunch for 15 minutes and just get like smoked brisket, no sauce, no bread, no sides, and just eat that meat every day.
There's a decent amount of calories, especially in the fatty brisket, but it's not a ton. But if you did pulled pork or you did especially if you did the turkey, which the turkey, I had some turkey, it was delicious. If you just did the turkey and the green beans, you'd be all right. Like you'd be doing fine.
Yeah.
So, all right. What a day. It only gets better from here, though, folks. We got Wendy's spicy, saucy takes tomorrow. It's a Wendy's saucy take Wednesday. Also, we are scheduled to have, you know him, you love him. He's already bowl eligible. Coach Siggs, Kurt Signetti, Indiana coach. They're playing Nebraska this week. Scheduled to interview him for tomorrow's show. It only gets better from here, folks. What a week. College football never disappoints. We'll talk to you tomorrow.